Yeah, this show ain't going to be for kids for sure.
No.
Parents, don't let your kids watch this.
Right.
You know.
But these are the people that our kids are listening to.
Oh, I know.
You know,
I know,
which is that's
why
it's
we want to
needful.
point it out. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. Hopefully it helps someone. We're not pointing it out for no reason at all. There's a purpose here.
Around the world, as promised, a remnant remains, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Welcome to Remnant Podcast. All right, so we took a poll across Facebook. We have a Facebook page, YouTube, and it was close. It was a close call on all three. But the one everybody voted the most on was they sold their souls for Hollywood. And so wanted to put together something for that because I think it's very obvious that there is an evil agenda in Hollywood. But I would go so far as to say it's more than just an agenda. And I think by the end of this episode, you'll see that there is truly an evil spirit and a spiritual presence in Hollywood on purpose, not even like accidental, not unbeknownst to some of these people.
Yeah.
I do want to reference, because you watched it several years ago, there is an older documentary called They Sold Their Souls for Rock and Roll.
Yes.
And it was very well done.
Yeah, it really was. Well, it was very thorough. There's a 10-hour version and a 4-hour version. I think there's actually a 2-hour version. The 4-hour version is the one that I watched.
Yes.
And it was very well done.
Well, the thing that I wanted to do a little bit differently on this, obviously very condensed. This is a very condensed version. But we're going to be covering not just people in the music industry. I wanted to sort of cover a broader range. We're going to cover music artists, but also social media personalities, magicians, actors, politicians, you name it. So we're going to touch a little bit on each one of those. And also I wanted to use a little bit more recent examples. You know, that documentary is several years old. And so I wanted to use people that are more in the news today.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it'll be as brief as possible, but as long as necessary to actually make the point. But, you know, once the point is made, I don't guess you just have to go on and on and on. But it's a big deal.
Oh, it's very big. I do want to say that a couple of places that I didn't even begin to go into because they are such big issues or episodes, they would be an episode in and of themselves. But one is Disney. You know, there's a lot to be said about Disney.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And so I didn't even go there. And then the other is I did focus only on those people in Hollywood and in the news that are self-proclaimed non-Christians. So yes, there's a whole lot to be said about a spiritual wickedness in the so-called church,
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't even start on any of that stuff. So yeah, we'll get started.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll get started on it. You know, like, well, I will say this: you could put this title on a lot of things, like Disney, which Disney don't have a soul, but if they did, they sold it.
Right.
They're really trying to sell you out is kind of really what's going on. And part of the reason to, start here is because this is where people can clearly see it. Mm-hmm. It can clearly be seen. And then, once you see it, you have to, I guess, discern for yourself what the next step is. We'll talk about it. And I want to bring out some things myself and what the Bible describes as spiritual warfare. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions about that I can hopefully make clear with some of the illustrations that you're going to show and some things that the Bible has to say. Because I don't think most of what people call spiritual warfare, when they think about it, I don't think that it's accurate. I think they have a very inaccurate view of it. So
yes.
Yeah, kick us off. What do you want to get into first?
Okay, so there are some people that use these phrases like, I sold my soul to the devil, or I made a deal with the devil.
Okay, so you said you've met the devil before.
I have. I ain't gonna say they have. I can't talk for Paul and Juice and them.
But you have.
I have. I mean, we did that. You know what I'm saying? We did that shit for real. Mm-hmm. Ain't no way you gonna be able to say 666 Mafia, 666, or none of that without actually meeting the man. You get what I'm saying?
I sold my soul to the devil. I know it's a crappy deal. Lisa came with a few toys like a Happy Meal.
Big bus, and it had like a 10-foot picture of my face on it. It just, no. It made me want to go back to Satan worship. Well, I think it worked for me. It got me a career.
I sold my soul.
Let it come out. Let that come all the way out.
I sold my soul to have a life that I wanted, that I never had.
Then I met the devil in God's country. You know, and
Did I sell my soul? I sold my soul for you. Now figure that out. Talking about I sold my soul for you.
So that does happen.
Oh yeah, I mean, as far as them saying that and thinking, yeah, it happens. I mean, there's dozens of them that have said that.
But there's also people that use less, I would say, Christian terminology or even less religious terminology, and they will say things like they have an alter ego. That's a very popular phrase that they'll use to sort of, it's twofold, you know. Mm-hmm. One thing is it sort of leaves them from feeling like they have to be accountable for what they do or what they say because it's not them, it's their alter ego. Mm-hmm. But really, if you listen to the way they describe it, they're describing possession. Demonic possession is really what that is.
Yeah, really it is. They're not even just talking, they're like talking about another personality that takes over them. It's not just like they have two moods, you know, this is me here, this is me this way. No, it's like literally, it's like they're inhabited by another person is the way that they would word it. Yes, and Beyonce even is shown on an interview saying that she cannot do, when she's rehearsing or practicing or by herself, she says, when I'm by myself, I can't hit these notes and I can't do these moves. But when Sasha Fierce comes into her, and that's what she says comes into her.
Sasha is my alter ego. And when people see me, sometimes I think that when they meet me and they speak with me, they're expecting Sasha. And I'm really kind of shy, and not really shy, but more reserved and nothing like Sasha. But I guess I wouldn't be very entertaining on the stage, so Sasha comes out, and she's fearless. You know, she can do things that I cannot do when I'm in rehearsal. I mean, I can try, but then it just doesn't happen. I can sing notes and sing strong and do all these things that when I'm just by myself, I can't do. And I remember right before I performed, I raised my hands up, and it was kind of the first time I felt something else come into me, and I knew that was gonna be my coming out night for the BET Awards.
So, like when you're getting ready to go on stage and perform, does Sasha Fierce, when does she show up?
Usually when I hear the crowd, when I put on my stilettos, when, like the moment right before when you're nervous and that other thing kind of takes over for you. Then Sasha Fierce appears, and my posture and the way I speak and everything is different.
Roman is a crazy boy who lives in me, and he says the things that I don't want to say. He was born, just a few months ago. I think he was born out of rage. He was conceived in rage, so he bashes everyone. He threatens to beat people, and he's violent.
That must be nice to have, like, an ignorant loudmouth who you can just sort of blame every...
He wants to be blamed. I don't want to blame him. I ask him to leave, but he can't. He's here for a reason. People have brought him out. People conjured him up. Now he won't leave.
By definition, what they're describing is possession.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that I wanted to mention while we're on the topic of possession is Kesha. She's a real popular singer, and she described, the best way I can do this is, G-rated, is being intimate with a ghost.
You said, I have to ask you this, you're telling me out of time that you've slept with a ghost. I have to ask you, have you slept with a ghost?
I did go to the Bone Zone with a ghost. I mean, do you want details?
Yes! Ghost of who? Was it a ghost of a famous person? Was it like...
I mean, I don't know his name, but he was in my house.
You don't know his name?
Well, he's a ghost. And so he just started, like, caressing me like this.
Oh. This story's getting better. And so then things proceeded from there.
Right, it was a sexy time. It wasn't like sex.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Here's the thing.
She's not the only one, by the way, but...
No,
Yeah.
she's not. It's just, I didn't really want to dive too deep into that stuff. I mean, it's disgusting. But what I really want to point out, because, we have people in our family even, and friends, that they try and treat all things spiritual as make-believe. But when you watch these people, there's nothing about the way they talk that shows them they're being playful or they don't mean it. They mean when they're talking about, oh yeah, I dealt with the devil, or they talk about being intimate with a ghost, or they talk about this possession that happens to them. There is nothing playful in their tone. They're not joking.
No, they're very serious. I mean, I will say serious doesn't mean true in every case, but it does mean that they believe what they're saying.
Right.
For example, what am I saying? If someone says they talked to Satan or the devil or something, they may have actually just talked to a demon.
Yes.
They may have even talked to something in their imagination, but the bottom line is they're persuaded in their own mind that they, communicated spiritually with something that we would say was a demon or a devil or the devil himself, Satan.
Right. Right. Which is the biggest point of this whole episode is to say that even if we don't think there's anything to what they're doing or any power behind it, the point is they do, I mean, obviously
Well, I do, let me say, for me personally, I do think there's something to what they're saying. I just think that we also just must be aware to draw limits. I do think, though, well, let me tell you something. The devil himself came to Jesus in the wilderness and said to him, bow and worship me and I'll give you all the kingdoms of the world. So he promised him fame, promised him power, promised him money. And it's called the temptation of Christ there. He was led by the Spirit into the wilderness after having fasted, and he was very weak and all this kind of stuff. And it doesn't actually mean that Christ was really struggling with the decision. It doesn't mean that. It just means that there was an opportunity presented there. Now, all I'm getting at is from that's one that we have recorded because it was Jesus. But I can imagine how a similar thing has transpired with other people in times past. Someone that Satan thinks that he could use to achieve his ends. What I'm saying is I don't really doubt that there's a lot of truth here. I'm just saying we do have to be careful because they'll take this encounter and then they'll start saying they got power over all kinds of things. And it's like, okay, now that's just because you're deceived. You believe that part. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But the devil or demons do pursue, I would say, people that they can use for an effect that they want to accomplish.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. For clarity's sake, I completely agree. I do believe that there is more to it than just playful words or insincere phrases, that they mean these things and there's something behind it. I do believe that. I just have heard people say that because they don't think there's something behind it, they don't take it seriously. But I think it's very critical to realize that these people do mean it. And so if for no other reason, recognize that they have an agenda here to corrupt the minds of your children.
That's a really good point. Even if they were actually completely wrong on all of it, doesn't matter. They still have an agenda and they have a platform to exercise this agenda.
Exactly.
They have a camera, they have a microphone, and they have a crowd.
Yes.
And they have an agenda.
Yes.
That's 100% fact.
Yes.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
But then you'll see their lyrics to their songs, and it'll be most vulgar things and the most blasphemous things. And I've always told my kids that, if you wouldn't say it, don't sing it, because just because you're putting a melody to it, you're still saying the words.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and see there, that's part of That's, if you want to call it the art of deception, that's part of it right there. Is how can we, play this down and cover this in some, make it look innocent, like it's just a song, it's just a painting, it's just a play, it's just a movie. They didn't, there was a play on words. No, man, that's how you sell the deception, really.
Yes.
But the deception, the lies, the deceit, the wickedness, it's all there. There are lyrics in songs that you should not say, period.
Yes.
I don't care if you're like, well, I don't even believe it, it's just the song. Still, don't say it.
Right.
Let me make a point while you're talking about this. I picked up on this a few years back, but it really should stand out to everyone, I think, especially when it's pointed out that these people are not using verses from the Quran, or they're not twisting the Quran, or they're not talking about, they don't hit their thumb and be like, Muhammad.
Right.
No, they say the Lord's name instead.
Right.
And they're not making fun of or mocking other religions. They're not mocking Buddha. They're not doing all that kind of stuff. They're not using even teachings from other religions. It's like, it really is antichrist in not every, but predominantly. It's literally anti everything that Christ was, is, and stood for and taught and said. But I mean, the fact that they keep pulling from that should be obvious to people. That they're on the side of evil.
Right.
You want to ask the question, what does it mean to sell your soul to Hollywood? What's that really even mean? What's Hollywood even mean? Well, Hollywood, we're not talking about the city. We're talking about a system. It's really a system. And if you was to really define Hollywood in the way that most people mean it when they say, oh, Hollywood's doing this or Hollywood's doing that, it's like a conglomerate of the arts and entertainment and all this kind of stuff, movie production, song production, and all that kind of stuff. But what really underlines it is that it's to sell your soul to Hollywood. For different ones may take on a different thing, but it's to trade. It's to cross a boundary in your own conscience and in your own heart for the sake of something to gain, worldly speaking. It's fame. Hollywood means fame. Hollywood means fortune. Hollywood means popularity and recognition, and in a lot of ways, to sell your soul for Hollywood, so to speak, can even mean for talent, and there was a time in my life, as you know, I'm a musician, and I got my priorities all out of order for a while, and I really started wanting to get better and better and better at music. And I started playing the piano continuously, hours a day. And I really was getting a lot better. I really was. And even vocally, I started like really, really applying myself. And I started getting better. And what I started doing, I'm just confessing something for the sake of the hearer. I'm not proud of any of this, and I thank God that he brought me through it. But what I started doing was tearing down a little bit of innocence that I once had by overcoming my inhibitions. The things that would kind of hold me back, like as a young musician, maybe in your 20s or something, you don't really, and you shouldn't, you don't really have the I would say courage, but it's not courage. It just don't feel natural to walk out on stage and just wail out with everything you got and play with it. You have a natural reserve, and I'd say that's a God-given reserve to keep you from going too far with things. And so how it starts is basically you sell your soul one piece at a time to an extent, and then you may make one big decision where it's done. But so with music, I started really, really, really wanting to be better. I started wanting to be able to let's go and do shows and do stage performance and stuff like that. It really just started working on me. And what started getting me too is it was like I'm actually getting better. And unfortunate here, but I started thinking better of myself musically than I ever had before. And so then I'm actually going on YouTube and I'm starting to like watch other instrumentalist people and trying to really advance. And something that started happening along the way is that once you really start wanting to just focus on music, it was like there was a draw to the rock and roll side because it pulls more out of you, so to speak. It requires more of you, and it's different. And so I did. I started learning some rock songs on the piano, and I started going to bed at night, and here I am, a Christian, so I'm not proud of this. I just, maybe it can help someone. I started going to bed, and I'd be listening to rock songs that I used to listen to 20 years ago that I laid down a long time ago because I knew it wasn't any good. And this stuff really started working on me to the point of I've only ever had 4 spiritual dreams in my whole life. So I'm not one of these people that say I had a dream. In fact, all 4 of the spiritual dreams was a negative coming upon me, or was going to come upon me if I didn't change something. It was like a warning to me. It wasn't for anybody else, but it was like God saying, this is what's going to happen to you. And one of the dreams that I had was literally that I was laying in bed. This was when I was in the thick of this warfare, like maintain this Christian life that I have and that I love, or follow through with music. And in my dream I was awake and I was laying in my bed and there was a demon standing in my room, and I knew why he was there. And I remember being like fearful, not that there was a demon there. I say it was a demon. It was like a shadowy something. Okay. And it was just a dream. But what I was fearful of in my dream, I started praying, Lord, don't let me sell my soul. That's what I started praying. Don't let me trade my soul for talent and for success. And so that really scared me. And then like 3 or 4 days later, because I didn't just lay it all down, I was in a real spiritual battle. 3 or 4 days later, I had a dream. And in that dream, again, I was in my bathroom awake, and darkness literally started closing in around me. It's not like I was losing my vision. I could still see, because I could just see all the darkness coming in, until it finally overtook me completely. And in my dream, I got down on the floor because I couldn't see anything, and I was feeling around, trying to find my way out of a bathroom. And I knew that this is a small room that I'm in, but I was like crawling around and feeling everywhere, and I could find no way out, even though I was actually just in a small room. But I couldn't find any way out. I was forever lost in that darkness. And when I woke up that night, I literally woke up just like panting, almost breathing heavy. It scared me so bad. And I believe God gave me those, to help me or whatever. But to me, this is a very real subject that people have. Bottom line, to sell your soul to Hollywood does mean to trade your innocence and to trade your inhibitions and to trade your what would come naturally, to trade truth and all of that kind of stuff for fame and fortune and popularity or talent or whatever, recognition, to trade it for some worldly gain. Makes me think of the Bible verse that says, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his own soul? And right there, what Jesus is saying is that your soul is worth more than all of this. But you know what the devil is saying is, I'll give you all of this for your soul. That's the wager. Right. So I'm sorry I went on with that for a long time, but
that's exactly right. And that's what I was hoping that you would show, because I think that's a big question a lot of people have, is how do you even sell your soul? What does that even look like and mean? And I think what you're saying is 100 is spot on. It's the chipping away of your conscience.
It is. It's the chipping away of your conscience. And I mean, I'll speak to that just for like one more minute. But what do I mean by that is we are given the grace of God, like the Bible calls it, the light that lighteneth every man that comes into the world. We're given a conscience by God. And we didn't evolve a conscience. Evolution never even happened. And our conscience is what the Bible calls a law bearer or a witness bearer in our heart, showing the work of the law in our heart. And so, even the person who has no idea of Christianity or whatever, they haven't heard it, God gave them a certain amount of protection to keep them from being completely overcome by evil, and we call it a conscience. A person on an island knows the sense of right and wrong. And so what they call selling the soul, how do you really do that? Well, for the most part, it happens little by little. In the end, it's a big decision. But it's doing something Where, let me give you a example that applies to this. A woman who feels, she's like, I don't want to do this scene. I'm practically naked. And the director's like, do you want the ratings? Do you want the money? Do you want this role or not? And she's like, and she's encouraged to by everybody else around there. They're like, oh, come on, we've all did it. We've all been naked on camera, half naked on camera, whatever. And she's like wagering this warfare in her mind of, man, I'm just not comfortable with this. But there's a drive, there's a push, there's a something. It's like she don't want to be the one to say no. And this movie is gonna make her somebody because she's starring with a famous person and all this. And so literally, she convinces herself, and they do ceremonies for this, by the way, to teach you. You can go and learn, if you're a Hollywood person, how to sear your conscience where it don't bother you. I mean, and the Bible talks about that. People having their conscience seared with a hot iron where they literally have no feeling of, because that's what they want. They want to get rid of this. They don't want to look timid on camera. They want to look confident and hot and powerful and all this. But that don't come naturally to the man.
Right.
For the man to be able to do that kind of stuff and to even act out some of the scenes they act out, they try and figure out ways. They intentionally try and expose themselves to stuff over and over and over to numb that, to get it to where they don't have to be that way. And that's how it happens. That's how you sell your conscience out, basically.
Yeah. What stood out to me is this very obvious playing it down, like Heather Graham. I think it was an article on her where she was talking about how she had a cute little crystal sanctuary and would, or Giselle would talk about how she is a witch, but she's a witch of love, and it's supposed to be lighthearted and yet admission at the same time. But that's how, that's again, sort of a slow step into chipping away at a natural barrier.
That's right. That's what I was going to say. What we would call playing it down, downplaying it, softening it up. What that really, to me, is evidence of is this tiny little remnant of conscience left that don't want to just call it what it is.
Exactly.
And that's also the nature of sin and wickedness and evil is to that. What am I trying to say? That's how you deceive yourself. You deceive yourself by, take again, the woman that's being asked to do some scene that she originally was not planning on doing. And then she's like talking to herself and other people's talking to her. And she's like, well, my heart's really not in it. It's not that I want to do it, but it's a job. It's for the job. It's going to make me some money for my family if she's got a family, or my husband or whatever. I could even retire. She starts playing it down. It's not that big a deal. It's just acting. It's not real. It's not like we're really doing this. And she plays it down and plays it down. It's self-deception.
Yes.
Saying, I'm a white witch. I'm a good witch. No, this is what you should say. I'm a witch.
Right.
That's it.
Yes. Yeah.
There's
absolutely.
no such thing in the Bible as a good witch.
Right.
Or a white witch.
Right.
Or whatever. No such thing.
Yeah.
So to put this, Yeah,
and it's, encouraging to me, hopeful, I should say, not encouraging, but it gives me hope when I see things like Cardi B. She just posted this thing where she was actually in tears, like legitimate tears, saying that she didn't want to be this way anymore. She just wants to be a mother.
I've been having these weird feelings lately, and that's kind of why I didn't want to do this song, Shake It, or like any drill songs, because it's like these songs are activating like these demons that I killed. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to be that girl anymore. Like I just want to be a mother. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to be that old Cardi anymore. I don't want to be that anymore. Like, and she's coming back. She's coming back, bro. Like, I don't want to be that anymore. I want to be a mother. This song is activating demons and it's coming back again. And I don't want to be that. I want to be a good person. I don't want to.
And that to me shows she still has a conscience. She's not reprobate. She's not, turned over. But by the end of that, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe she'll come out of it. You know, you can only hope and pray for her. But anyway, yeah. So there are people that downplay it a lot, but just because, basically, I wanted to say that just to say that just because they're on this list doesn't necessarily mean that they're a lost cause. But some of these people, I really believe are.
Oh, I'm 100%
some of these people
sure.
really are, and
I'll tell you why
that.
too. I'm 100% sure some of these people are 100% lost cause. It's because it seems to me that once you really just sell your conscience completely,
yes,
then a lot of the deception, I think, actually leaves some of these people, and they just know that they're doomed. And they like Judas.
Yes, right.
Judas sold Jesus for 30 shekels of silver, and he was deceived by the devil. Tells us that Satan entered into him. Judas sold his soul to the devil by selling Jesus, basically. But did Judas feel guilt after it was all said and done? He killed himself.
Yeah.
So he felt some guilt. But it's like, what I mean is, it's like once the devil gets you, once you fully committed and you're done, it's like, okay, I'm going to show you what you've done now.
Right.
And they go in, that's when they just like, they go into such crazy psychotic fits and darkness of things, and it just gets crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you got some videos on here that's going to show some of that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. There is open witchcraft in Hollywood. The most open about it would be this female rapper named Azealia Banks, and she has video footage of herself talking about witchcraft, types of witchcraft, and she's in what she calls her witch room, witch closet, and you can see in the background there are feathers and blood from animal sacrifices all over the room. And she talks about having daggers in the room, and that it's a very blood-hungry spirit that she's referring to the point that she says that you can't even perform these rituals as a female if it's that time of the month for you, because they will eat you, because they're blood-hungry. Yeah, she is dead serious about this stuff.
I just wanted to come here to you in the Witch Cave today, because I've been talking a lot of shit today, and just wanted to give you guys a real peek at what it's about. I got my chola wenge here with the embeles and all the daggers and everything. I've been initiated in Palo Mayombe for the last 4 years of my life, and I love it. I originally came into the religions through Yamaya. Of course, she called me first. And I came, and every santero that I saw, everybody that I went to was like, Azealia, you have to go work with the dead. You have to go work with the dead. You must go work with the dead, right? So you have to come in as an herbalist, almost as a nurse, almost. And that's how you get to work in Palo Mayombe, right? We just can't work when we are on our periods, and we can't initiate anybody until the period is done, because these are blood hungry vessels, so you can't come near them while you're bleeding, because they'll attach to you and eat you. Know that it's not it's not just a fashion thing. It's not something that you just put on and then it's like Santera chic or whatever. It's not that kind of a thing. It's a real lifestyle, or Malera chic or whatever. It's a real lifestyle, and it's a real way of being. I urge every African American woman, especially, not to be afraid of so-called voodoo. But I urge you guys not to be afraid of your own powers, because you guys are very, very, very powerful. We are very, very, very powerful.
Beyonce's drummer of 7 years has actually sued her for witchcraft casting spells on her.
The drummer who claims she was put under Beyonce's spell is now speaking out.
The fact that people keep saying I'm crazy, hell, the situations I had to deal with and survive are crazy.
Kimberly Thompson says she is tormented from being put under manic sexual spells by Beyonce.
We're talking about other situations where changing into animals and jumping into other bodies and all kinds of really crazy stuff.
In bizarre court papers, Thompson claims Beyonce, who she refers to as this person, has started a campaign of harassment against her that includes extreme witchcraft, dark magic, and magic spells of sexual molestation. She also claims Beyonce murdered her kitten after the singer put a spell on it.
They were like, the cat has a spell on it. The cat was taken back to her people, and they killed it.
And then, of course, Giselle, there's Tom Brady talking about, because at the time they were married, Tom Brady talking about how Giselle would build these shrine things and altars and do spells over him before games. She would be very serious about him reciting these things or chanting these things that she would tell him to do.
Any superstitions going into the game? Any special thing you carried into the game on Sunday that you had tucked away somewhere?
I did. I always, I've learned a lot from my wife over the years. She's so about the power of intention, and believing things that are really going to happen. And she always makes a little altar for me at the game because she just wills it so much. And so she put together a little altar for me that I could bring with pictures of my kids. And I have these little special stones and healing stones and protection stones. And she has me wear a necklace and take these drops she makes. And I say all these mantras. And I stopped questioning her a long time ago. I did. I just shut up and listened. And at first I was like, this is kind of crazy. And then about 4 years ago, we were playing the Seahawks, and she said, you better listen to me. This is your year, but this is all the things you're going to have to do to win. And I did all those things, and by God, it worked. It was pretty good. And then in 2015, it was about early January, and she said, you know how much I love you? And I said, yeah. And she said, I just want to let you know this is not going to be your year. Oh. And of course, we lost. I said, what does 16 look like? And she said, 16 is going to be your year. So it was early January this year, and I said, babe, I asking, do we have a chance? And she said, yeah, but you're going to have to do a lot of work, and you're really going to have to listen to me. So, man, I listened to her. And right after the game, she said, see, I did a lot of work. You do your work, I do mine. She said, you're lucky you married a witch. I'm just a good witch.
In the Bible, there's a little bit of a commonality, it seems like, among some of the people that were possessed. And blood does seem to be a part of it, because I'm wanting to say it's what's called the Gathering demoniac, the one that was where Jesus cast out, and it was I am Legion, for we are many, or whatever. And it said he was in the tombs cutting himself.
Right.
And here's part of what I think about that, though. Some of these people that are possessed, or even want to be possessed, it's crazy. Some of them literally say they want to be possessed.
Yes.
When we think of them cutting themselves and all that kind of stuff, we think man, oh, why would you do that? But they actually get, they're so under this deception. They look at it like a pleasure thing. They look at blood as like perfume. I mean, they're so messed up in this stuff. I'm just saying, when these people are talking about some of this, to us on the outside, it would be like, oh, that's disgusting. Oh, that's so weird. Oh, that would be, why did you do that? It hurts. But they get this pleasure from pain. They get pleasure from things that are disgusting. That's something that accompanies demonic possession. And the way I see it is, it's like, really, the demon just wants you to destroy whatever it can. Destroy your innocence. Destroy your body. Destroy your soul. Destroy your purity. Destroy truth. Destroy everything. How can we get you to do that? And also, how can we get you to behave like an animal? To humiliate God in some sense, because you was created in the image of God. How can, like I'm saying, the demon itself is wanting to make you do all kinds of...
And isn't there something in the Old Testament where God actually had a law against drinking blood or eating?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I don't remember exactly how it was.
To take in human blood at all was absolutely forbidden.
Yes.
And along with, by the way, for the listener that may not know this, literally look up the word witchcraft. It's there. And it says witchcraft, wizard, necromancer, enchanter, consulter with spirits. All that stuff is talked about in the book of Deuteronomy. And it says, don't let it be found in the whole nation.
Right.
He was literally telling them, you get it out of the whole land.
Oh, and this stuff is celebrated. I mean, couples that drink each other's blood that's been in Hollywood for years.
It's so gross to me. I mean,
I know.
It
Really
really
is. Probably the most recent and popular ones are Kourtney Kardashian and Travis Barker, Megan Fox and her fiance, MGK, is Machine Gun Kelly.
So we went to Costa Rica to do ayahuasca like in a proper setting, like with indigenous people, and nothing glamorous about it. It's all a part of sort of making you vulnerable so that you surrender to the experience. And the entire thing starts with something called vomitivo. I hope I'm allowed to divulge this, that it's okay that I share, but I'm encouraging it. So you go, and we were with 20 other strangers, and you all line up at like the edge of the rainforest over this weird fence, and you go 3 by 3 and you drink lemongrass tea until you, like, by not your own volition, just vomit everything out of your body. So you
have to vomit. There's no way around that part.
You can't get out of it, and you have to vomit a certain amount before they let you get back with everybody. So you're like cheering on everyone as they like throw up. And as like what we do, obviously, we were like, I don't know, am I ready to just like throw up in front of all of these people? But it's such a good bonding experience. And I know it sounds crazy, but that gets you ready to then go into the ceremony that night, because you're like, my vanity is gone. I've just done this in front of all of these strangers, and like now I'm ready to like really open up. So we did it for 3 nights. It was incredibly intense. Everybody's journey is different. The second night, I went to hell for eternity. Yeah, and just knowing eternity is like torture in itself, because there was no beginning, middle, or end. So you have like a real ego death.
The Bible does say that there's a great gulf fixed.
Right.
And nobody, by the way, nobody's ever gone to hell and back again.
Right.
Nobody. Okay. And nobody's ever gone to heaven and back again either.
Right.
Because once you go to one or the other, it's because you're dead and your soul is there and you've been judged. It's it. There's no returning. So all this stuff, anyway, that's a whole nother podcast.
That's another episode.
Yeah. That's a whole nother podcast.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but I do want to make this point. I want to just keep in mind that these people, Megan Fox, she was Transformers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got this woman, I don't even know how old she is. She's going around drinking people's blood, doing this crazy shaman ceremony in Africa, practicing witchcraft stuff, worshiping Satan, basically. But then she comes out on your teenage boys' movies, Transformers, and she's just, this.
Yeah, she's played a high school, girl, and I mean,
if you could video and see, parents, if you could see on video what she's doing behind the scenes, you would never say, yeah, son, go watch that movie. You wouldn't do that.
Right. Like, imagine if I do all these, animal sacrifices here, and I'm drinking your blood, and I'm letting people know about it, and my neighbor down the road, I'm like, oh, hey, I'm going to be singing over here tomorrow. You guys should come listen. You think my neighbor would have anything to do with me? No. They'd be like, I ain't going to.
Unless you live in Hollywood. That's why those people have to all live in Hollywood. Because if she was a neighbor here in the town we live in, she would be the city outcast.
Psycho. Yeah. Yes. Everybody would be like,
they'd be like, don't let your cat go down that road. You'll never get it back.
Right. Yeah. But because there is this, they get a pass for some reason because they're in front of a camera. But if you just think about, well, if my next door neighbor was doing the exact same thing, sometimes when you don't see that, you will see symbolism. And symbolism is there on purpose. There is no such thing as having a pentagram with the horns of a beast, That's not an accident. That stuff is there intentionally. Yeah. And so I wanted to mention some of the types of symbolism that is rampant, especially in the music industry, in their videos and stuff like that. But I'm talking about this is in their clothing lines, and we'll get into that here in just a second. But the first one I want to talk about, I think some people may not be real familiar with. is the Baphomet symbol.
Mm-hmm.
But that's there a lot if you know what to look for.
The Baphomet thing, it is an ancient satanic symbol. It's even a transgender type, homo type symbol. And there's a whole lot of other stuff that they would say about it, I'm sure. But for some reason, demons and the devil is very often depicted that way. Even in the Bible, when it's not the devil, but there's a false prophet depicted in the book of Revelation, and it describes him as a creature with 2 horns. It says he sees it spiritually. It's a person, but when he looks beyond that person and sees spiritually what's behind that person, it says it appears as a lamb that has 2 horns and speaks as a dragon.
One thing I want to make mention of is that I was very careful not to address any of the stuff that might be considered conspiratorial. Like we're not getting into Illuminati symbolism. We're not getting into stuff like that. We're getting into any symbolism that we're talking about here is 100% accepted. Like Baphomet is an accepted satanic symbol. There is no conspiracy about that. It is known to be a symbol for satanic purposes. Okay?
Yeah.
And what goes along with the Baphomet symbol is things like blood sacrificing, blood rituals. Another thing that you'll find always with it is stuff to do with children, pedophilia type things. The image is transgender type. It's part male, part female, part animal.
When it's a goat-headed thing.
Also, you'll see a lot of 666, which again, has Christian roots as far as it's in the Bible about the.
That's completely a Christian root.
Yes,
completely.
Yeah. Upside down crosses. And then there's a rapper. His name is, you guys, they'll laugh because I've never heard of him before this study, but Lil, L-I-L, Uzi, U-Z-I, Vert, V-E-R-T. And the reason that is significant here is because they say if you say that sort of like all together, it says Little Lucifer, Lil Lucifer, Lil Lucifer. People are going to laugh at me, but Lil Lucifer.
Yeah, I got you.
Lil Lucifer.
Yeah,
Lil
I got
Lucifer.
you. I got you, but you see how they
That's what I'm
hid
saying.
that right there in plain sight?
Yes, and that is totally intentional. I mean, you can obviously see how that's intentional. And then another blatant anti-Christian satanic move was by this guy named there's another Lil, L-I-L, Lil Nas, okay? And he's actually a homo rapper. That his video is him giving Satan a lap dance. It's disgusting.
That's
we
gross.
shouldn't even get into all that.
Yeah.
But anyway, what he did, though, that was just, again, so everybody was taken aback, was he created a line of shoes. And these shoes were famous because they had a drop of human blood in them, in the soles. And he only made 666 pairs. And they cost $1,018. And the 1,018 was significant of Luke chapter 10, verse 18, they said, because that's where it says, and I saw Satan fall from the sky. And it says, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven.
Yeah.
And would you believe that those shoes sold out in less than a minute?
I wouldn't have believed that.
Less than a minute. Just disgusting. Disgusting.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You know, one thing, too, that I'm thinking about is I don't know that a good honest Christian singer has ever been invited to perform on the White House lawn. But these people are.
Man.
These people are invited to the Capitol to put on a performance for Washington or whatever. I'm saying Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't they invite Christian people? The demonic influence is vast.
Yes, absolutely. And that's sort of where I wanted to kind of bring it down to as far as an end. But when you get into talking about the blood rituals and stuff like that in Hollywood, a name that probably, I doubt many people actually know her by name or even by face, but she is one of the most prominent people in basically all circles that are affluent, like politicians, actors, models. And her name is Marina Abramovich. And she's been very, very famous since the 90s, I would say. But she... Go ahead.
Is she the lady that Hillary Clinton consulted?
She's linked to Hillary Clinton because she sent an email out inviting people associated with Hillary Clinton's campaign and other people. Lady Gaga was there, but to a spirit cooking. She's thrown several parties where you're eating off of what looks like a dead corpse. It's imitating cannibalism. She has openly used pig's blood as part of her art, where she's writing spells on a wall and instructions. That involve very, very graphic things. And I'm just going to show pictures, but I'm not going to repeat them. But she is linked to people that you never would have known. James Franco, Robert De Niro, these are actors, models. So when you've got a woman like this influencing the people that are key names, popular names in today's entertainment industry and even in today's political world, you've got to recognize that, again, it could not be more important to practice discernment on what you expose or allow your children to be exposed to, listening, to these people, watching these people, being influenced by these people, because it's very, very real.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Can I give some application on some of this?
Yeah.
Because I started off by saying that spiritual warfare doesn't play out like a lot of people think that it does. A lot of people think spiritual warfare is some sort of, Hollywood version of it, where it's like a Catholic dude holding up a cross and it's like, you demon, get out of here, you shall not pass, whatever.
Right.
And it's not that. Spiritual warfare, let me say it this way. The attack on your soul must go through your mind. It has to. That's the only portal that wickedness can come at your soul. Your soul can't be attacked except through the mind. Mm-hmm. If it was, you wouldn't even. How would you even know? You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And here's the other thing: to get to the mind, you must go through the eyes or the senses. You must pass through the senses. And so, the reason I'm laying that out is to say this: spiritual warfare, so-called, is actually fought and perceived in the physical realm visibly. Let me give you an example. In the Bible, there was a spiritual warfare waged against a man named Samson. They said, Delilah, go and entice him and find out what his strength is, that we may weaken him and afflict him. Like literally, that's what they said. And so it was a spiritual warfare, but it was being waged through physical things. Let me give you another example. This is talked about several times in the Bible. Even Jesus himself mentions it in the book of Revelation when dealing with the churches. And it's this man named Balaam It's the guy in the Bible who the donkey ended up talking to.
Right.
And anyway, it says he taught Balak. Balak was like a king of a foreign territory. He taught Balak how to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel. This is very interesting. Balak wanted to conquer God's people, but he couldn't. Really, that's the story. He feared them, and he wanted to conquer them, but he could not conquer them. And Balaam basically said this: if you can get them to sin, then their God won't fight for them. So Balak basically hired all of these women of his kingdom to go out and try and seduce and be seductive and trap or whatever, entice, seduce men of Israel or whatever, to bring them into sin, to bring them down through sin. That's spiritual warfare.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Balak knows that he can't actually like reach in there and grab your soul, but if he can entice you through the eyes and through the mind, it's a spiritual warfare actually being fought. And sure enough, he caused them to fall.
Right.
And here's a point behind that. Hollywood, on its most basic level, we could say so much more than this, but it's trying to entice you to sin.
Definitely.
It's trying to entice your children to sin. It's trying to entice you to find pleasure in wickedness. It's trying to paint wickedness as fun, mysterious, all this kind of stuff. But it actually is spiritual warfare, but in this sense, they just want to entice you to sin, because when you're in sin like that, I mean, honestly, God, look, of course, I believe that we're saved and that God has forgiven our sin and stuff like that. But every man knows in his own conscience, every Christian knows that when he's living in sin, he can't even get down and pray. I mean, he feels like he's hitting a brick wall. He can't be right. He can't feel right before God. I'm not saying that you're lost, but I am saying that how is the world going to overcome Christianity? Well, for the most part, it's by getting you guys to sin. As much as they can. Right. That's how the warfare is fought out. That's all I was trying to say. These people, they can't actually cast a spell over you and control you and poke a voodoo doll and hurt you. That part's not legit. But what they can do is say, come to our ceremony. Come hang out with us. In fact, even with the Balak and Balaam thing, they did that. They had this great feast, and they invited the people of Israel. Y'all come. Everybody's welcome here. Y'all come on. Yeah, I mean, I know we're having some weird thing over here, but no mind us, Y'all just come be a part. Spiritual warfare, most simply stated, is a war against your sense of ethics and morality and righteousness. Yes. To persuade you to not view the world that way, to persuade you to break your own conscience, to persuade you to drift their way a little bit. That's really where the war's coming down. Right. That's way simpler than a lot of people think.
Yes. And I will say, which I know we're going to do a whole episode on this, and it's very needful, but there is a need for good judgment.
Yeah, judgment.
We must have discernment. We must, it's not, which we'll get into this in another episode, but you can't be afraid to draw the line and say, that is wrong,
To call something wrong these days, they'll say, you're being judgmental, but that's not judgmental.
No,
that's not what the Bible even talks about when it's talking about don't be judgy, or judge not unless you be. That's not what it's talking about.
Yeah.
It's 100% clear. There's a line of good and evil.
And we must distinguish.
Absolutely.
We must distinguish. Otherwise, you end up
And here's the thing, almost everybody that watches this will agree, oh, that's wicked.
Right.
Okay, so we all agree they're on that side of the line, but the question is, where is the line? How far can we come before it's like...
Right.
Okay, and that's where discernment has to come in and
we'll get into that for sure, man. And I do want to say before we close out that if you've got something or someone that you're wanting us to look into and cover, leave it in the comments, send us an email. Yeah.
Yes, and it can be for the good too. Like, I mean, there was a person we was talking about covering recently, and I was thinking we'll probably have a lot of good that comes out of this. We don't want to just. It's not that we're out just to try and show you all the negatives.
Right.
No, I mean we're just wanting to do it for the sake of truth and for the sake of the podcast. But yeah, it could be a good thing. Like, and maybe we need to do some shows about, hey, these are some good people that you could listen to that you that you'd be safe with or whatever. But
definitely.
All right, I'm good. You good?
I'm great. All right, good talk.